one of the great engineering wonders of the world.
It has allowed for the movement of well over 1 million ships back and forth.
The Panama Canal stands as one of the greatest engineering marvels in the world, facilitating the passage of over 1 million ships between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. This crucial waterway has transported an estimated $4 trillion worth of cargo, significantly boosting the American economy. However, recent developments have sparked serious concerns, particularly from billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, who is left in disbelief over what has happened to the canal. Historically, the Panama Canal has been a vital trade route, once under the control of the United States until its official handover to Panama in 1999. Since then, the canal has encountered numerous challenges, including soaring usage fees. These price hikes became so severe that former U.S. President Donald Trump once threatened to reclaim control if the costs were not lowered. But what exactly happened to this once revered trade passage, and why has it become a source of frustration for many American shipping companies? Join us as we delve into Elon Musk's perspective on the unfolding crisis at the Panama Canal. On December 22nd, then President-elect Donald Trump made a shocking statement that gave the world a glimpse into his future policies. Addressing a rally in Arizona, he launched a scathing attack on Panama's management of the canal, criticizing the exorbitant fees imposed on American vessels. He claimed that these excessive costs were making it increasingly difficult to transport goods between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, ultimately harming American businesses. Trump argued that these high fees were a contributing factor to the nation's struggling economy in recent years. He issued a stark warning: if the price hikes were not reversed promptly, the United States would demand the return of the Panama Canal to American control. His statement sent shockwaves through the international community, raising questions about whether the U.S. would actually attempt to reclaim the canal. Trump's accusations did not go unanswered. Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino swiftly dismissed any possibility of handing the canal back to the United States. He firmly stated that Panama maintains full control over the waterway and denied allegations that China was benefiting at the expense of the U.S. His response was resolute: there would be no negotiations regarding the canal's ownership. This firm stance further fueled tensions, with many viewing Trump's comments as an outright challenge to Panama's sovereignty. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, known for his outspoken opinions on global affairs, weighed in on the matter. According to sources close to him, Musk believes that the skyrocketing toll fees stem from several deep-rooted issues facing Panama, including freshwater shortages, security concerns, and political instability. He suggested that the country might be overcharging American shipping companies to compensate for these problems, effectively using the U.S. as a financial cushion. While some supporters saw Trump's remarks as his usual bold rhetoric, others perceived them as a direct threat to a sovereign nation, an opinion shared by President Mulino, who voiced strong disapproval of Trump's statements. The recent tensions surrounding the Panama Canal are not just a modern political dispute. They are part of a much older story, spanning over 500 years. To understand the complexities of this issue, one must travel back in time to the early 16th century, when the idea of creating a passage between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans was first conceived. It was in October 1513 when Spanish explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa made a groundbreaking discovery. He crossed the Isthmus of Panama and identified a narrow strip of land separating the two oceans. Inspired by this finding, he shared his vision of constructing a waterway that would connect the seas, revolutionizing global trade. This ambitious idea resonated with many explorers, who saw it as a way to shorten the perilous journey between Europe and Asia. At the time, sailors navigating around the southern tip of South America faced treacherous waters filled with deadly storms and feared sea monsters. The prospect of a shortcut through Panama was an enticing alternative, drawing interest from European colonists eager to turn Balboa's vision into reality. Despite early enthusiasm, constructing the canal proved to be an insurmountable challenge for centuries. The technology required to undertake such a project simply did not exist at the time. Additionally, the region's thick jungles, mountainous terrain, and harsh tropical climate posed extreme difficulties for early explorers unaccustomed to such conditions. As a result, The dream of a canal remained unfulfilled for over 300 years. It was not until the late 19th century, in 1881, that serious efforts were made to bring the project to life. French engineers, fresh from their success in constructing the Suez Canal in Egypt, set their sights on Panama. Led by Ferdinand de Lesseps, they planned to build a sea-level canal that would allow ships to pass through seamlessly. Given their prior achievements, many believed the endeavor would be a relatively straightforward task. However, they were gravely mistaken. The challenges they faced were far greater than anticipated, leading to setbacks that would ultimately alter the course of history. The ambitious yet ill-fated French attempt to build the Panama Canal marked the start of a long and arduous journey toward its eventual completion. As history unfolded, new players, including the United States, stepped in to turn the dream into a reality. Over time, the canal evolved into one of the most strategically significant waterways in the world, shaping global trade as we know it today. However, the recent controversies, rising fees, and political tensions have cast a shadow over its legacy, leaving many, including Elon Musk, deeply concerned about its future. What lies ahead for the Panama Canal remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: it continues to be at the heart of global commerce, power struggles, and historical significance. During the construction of the Panama Canal, countless workers fell ill due to malaria and yellow fever, and within weeks, many tragically lost their lives to the outbreak. It became evident that Ferdinand and his team had severely underestimated the challenges posed by the environment they had ventured into. Firstly, the tropical climate of Panama brought heavy rainfall, frequent landslides, and an overwhelming population of mosquitoes, infamous for spreading deadly diseases. Secondly, unlike the arid desert terrain of Egypt, which was relatively easy to excavate, Panama presented an entirely different challenge. The land was covered in dense jungle, riddled with uneven slopes, making it exponentially more difficult to work with compared to the Suez Canal project. Thirdly, addressing these obstacles required a substantial increase in operational costs, and as expenses skyrocketed over the years, it became glaringly obvious that the project was doomed to fail. Corruption among the higher ranks further worsened the situation. By 1889, a mere 8 years after the project had commenced, Ferdinand had lost over 20,000 men to disease, exhausted enormous financial resources that could never be recuperated, and watched as multiple teams withdrew from the endeavor. By late December of that year, the project was completely abandoned, a catastrophic failure by all standards. However, less than 2 decades later, the United States took an interest in the project. Led by the renowned civil engineer John Stevens, the question remained: could he succeed where others had failed? As the dawn of the 20th century approached, U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt recognized the enormous potential of the Panama Canal. He viewed it as a vital pathway for both military and commercial use, capable of revolutionizing global trade and enabling swift special operations. However, a significant hurdle stood in his way. It wasn't U.S. territory. Merely constructing the canal wasn't enough. For it to truly benefit the United States, the country needed ownership or at least exclusive legal rights, something no previous nation had managed to secure. At that time, Panama was struggling to break free from Colombia's control. Sensing an opportunity, the United States provided support for Panama's independence. In return, the newly formed nation agreed to a treaty in 1903, granting the U.S. control over the canal zone in exchange for financial assistance. With the agreement in place, construction began in 1904 under the supervision of American civil engineer John Stevens. John Stevens, a pragmatic and highly skilled manager accustomed to working under immense pressure, was the ideal candidate for the job. Learning from the mistakes of his predecessors, he prioritized the well-being of his workers before commencing construction. He ensured they had access to proper housing, sanitation, and medical care, enlisting top military doctors from the United States to combat the spread of malaria and yellow fever. Unlike previous attempts, Stevens opted for a lock-based system instead of a sea-level canal. This innovative approach allowed ships to be raised to a higher elevation and gradually lowered, enabling smooth navigation through the challenging terrain. It also significantly reduced costs, as workers could focus on developing a simple water passage rather than leveling towering hills and mountains. By 1906, substantial progress had been made, but the challenges were far from over. Tensions began to rise between President Theodore Roosevelt and John Stevens toward the end of the year. Initially, the U.S. administration had provided unwavering support for the project, ensuring all necessary resources were available. However, as time passed, interference from government officials started to hinder progress. Reports suggest that Stevens was pressured into hiring contractors he did not approve of, while others indicate that Roosevelt disagreed with many of his strategic decisions. It became increasingly evident that the U.S. government was looking for a way to remove Stevens from the project. Eventually, the opportunity arose when Stevens suffered severe stress-related health issues. Before he could be formally replaced, however, he preemptively resigned, passing his responsibilities to George Washington Goethals in 1907. Contrary to expectations, Goethals merely continued the work that Stevens had begun. Using steam shovels and dynamite, he spearheaded the excavation of the Calabar Cut, arguably the most arduous phase of the project. This stage required innovative excavation techniques, and despite these advancements, the endeavor remained fraught with difficulties. Equipment frequently malfunctioned or failed altogether, and despite the comprehensive health measures established by Stevens and maintained by Goethals, nearly 5,000 workers succumbed to yellow fever, landslides, and harsh weather conditions. The unpredictable Panamanian climate posed additional setbacks, with workers toiling for days to carve out sections of land only to see them buried under mud following a single bout of rainfall. Despite these relentless challenges, Goethals and his team remained steadfast, determined to transform a 500-year-old dream into reality. After a decade of relentless effort, countless obstacles, and untold sacrifices, the long-awaited day finally arrived. On August 15, 1914, the Panama Canal was officially completed, celebrated by the successful passage of the SS Ancon through its newly constructed waterway. The event marked a monumental achievement for both America and Panama, forever altering global trade. Prior to the canal's existence, the journey between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans took nearly 2 months. With this revolutionary engineering feat, the same journey could now be completed in a mere 8 hours. Workers from numerous nations played a crucial role in bringing the Panama Canal to life, including experienced laborers from distant regions, such as the Caribbean. The United States had accomplished what others could not, securing control over a strategic passageway vital for global trade and military operations. However, the question remained, how long would this dominance last? From the moment the canal was opened, the United States held ownership and oversight, extending its influence beyond the waterway to the entire surrounding zone. President Roosevelt's vision of the canal as a crucial military asset proved accurate, particularly as the world braced for impending war. Since the U.S. controlled the region, the canal was primarily utilized to transport military supplies for American forces. Even after the war ended, the United States maintained authority over the canal, implementing modifications to accommodate significantly larger vessels, such as the renowned Seawise Giant, although that particular plan never materialized. Given its efficiency in accelerating global transportation, the canal quickly became one of the busiest maritime routes in the world, attracting interest from multiple nations. Panama, as the host country, benefited from substantial financial compensation from the United States in exchange for its sovereignty over the region. For nearly 5 decades, the U.S. exercised absolute control over the canal and its adjacent zones. However, this dominance faced a turning point when Panamanian President Omar Torrijos assumed office. Like any devoted leader, Omar held a deep love for his country and was determined to revoke the Hay-Buenaventura Treaty, the agreement that granted the U.S. ownership of the canal in return for financial benefits. His mission was to restore full sovereignty to Panama, ensuring complete control over every inch of its land, including the canal constructed by the U.S. Between the late 1960s and early 1970s, President Omar Torrijos engaged in intense negotiations with U.S. President Richard Nixon. Although these discussions were fraught with tension and challenges, they culminated in the signing of the Torrijos-Carter Treaties in 1977. These agreements granted Panama increasing legal authority over the canal, with full ownership set to be transferred on December 31, 1999. However, tensions escalated over the following years due to rising operational costs and disputes regarding toll fees. With Panama now in complete control, its first major action was to increase transit fees for all shipping companies utilizing the canal, including prominent American firms such as Maersk Line and COSCO Shipping, both instrumental in sustaining the U.S. economy through global trade. The toll fees nearly doubled based on the cargo volume transported by each vessel. Despite mounting objections from shipping companies, Panama's government remained steadfast, arguing that the heightened charges were necessary to finance maintenance and future expansion projects. Over time, businesses adapted to the new pricing structure, but costs continued to surge throughout the mid-2010s. As disputes escalated, negotiations between shipping companies and the Panama Canal Authority became more frequent, with efforts to moderate toll increases proving largely unsuccessful. In early 2016, the authority announced yet another significant price hike, sparking public backlash from multiple shipping firms, particularly in the United States. When questioned, the agency justified the decision by emphasizing the necessity of funding an ongoing expansion project. True to its word, the project was completed by the end of 2016. However, canal tolls remained elevated even after its completion. These price adjustments persisted well into the early 2020s. For instance, in 2023, vessels under 65 feet faced a toll increase exceeding 10%, with projections indicating a further 30% rise by 2025. Many critics pointed out that during U.S. administration, the canal's toll rates remained stable for nearly 4 decades, only beginning to rise when Panama gradually assumed control in the early 1970s. This realization led to a shocking moment when former U.S. President Donald Trump publicly criticized Panama's pricing policies. Trump warned that unless the Panamanian government ceased overcharging shipping companies, the United States might reclaim control of the canal. He took matters a step further by suggesting that Panama was favoring China over the U.S., insinuating potential foreign influence on its economic policies. Panama's government reacted strongly to these accusations. President José Raúl Mulino firmly rejected any allegations of external interference, emphasizing that Panama's sovereignty over the canal was absolute and non-negotiable. He assured the international community that he had no intention of revisiting discussions regarding U.S. control of the waterway. Addressing concerns over increasing tolls, President Mulino clarified that fees were determined based on expert assessments, taking into account operational costs and market conditions to ensure the canal's long-term sustainability. As this controversy unfolded, tech magnate Elon Musk also entered the discussion. As a key figure in government efficiency analysis, Musk examined both perspectives and offered his insights. He pointed out that, compared to the 1960s, the Panama Canal had been facing severe droughts and water shortages in recent years, making navigation for large ships increasingly difficult. This problem worsened in 2019 when an unusually prolonged dry season led to minimal rainfall. With climate models predicting even longer dry periods in the future, the debate over toll increases, operational challenges, and global trade dynamics remained more relevant than ever. The Panama Canal Authority, the agency responsible for maintaining the region, had to explore more efficient ways to operate the canal while conserving water. This required limiting the amount of water used for ships passing through each day, which made the journeys slightly longer and less efficient. Although this approach kept the canal functional, it also significantly increased operational costs. The slower transit process placed greater strain on the locks that hold the water in place, leading to quicker wear and tear within a short period. In addition to these challenges, the canal has been heavily impacted by various economic disruptions over the years, most notably the global pandemic of 2020. During that time, numerous countries sealed their borders, factories ceased operations, and goods piled up without being shipped, resulting in a drastic decline in revenue for the canal. Although it has been 4 years since the crisis, reports indicate that the canal is still in the process of recovery. To compensate for the financial losses, authorities plan to increase toll rates even further in the coming years. With over 20 massive ships transporting thousands of oil and gas shipments daily, rising concerns about energy security continue to emerge. Over time, influential powers will likely seek control over the canal, especially as its capacity declines due to droughts, global trade disruptions, continuous water shortages, and escalating geopolitical tensions regarding Panama's sovereignty over the route. According to Elon Musk, the only long-term solution to these issues is to future-proof the pathway. Much of the canal's infrastructure is over a century old, making it a historic eighth wonder of the modern world. However, since 2016, the expansions and upgrades made to the canal have only managed to control the problem rather than solve it entirely. The situation is projected to worsen in the coming years. Elon pointed out that solving this issue would require a massive financial investment. If Panama attempted to raise funds by further increasing toll fees, shipping companies, already struggling with the high costs, might choose to abandon the canal entirely. Even if the necessary funds were secured, the renovation process would demand a complete shutdown of the canal, creating another logistical nightmare. The original construction of the canal, completed in 1914, took nearly a decade, and despite modern advancements in technology, a complete overhaul would still be a lengthy and complex process. Elon's response was largely unexpected, as his statements suggested there were legitimate reasons why transit costs through the canal had risen for American vessels. At this point, no official announcements have been made regarding the situation, but many believe that Donald Trump's recent threats provide a glimpse of what could unfold under his leadership. Based on the events at the Arizona rally on December 22nd, it appears highly likely that Trump will take a bold and aggressive stance regarding the canal. His strategy may involve using drastic measures to reclaim control over this critical trade route. Trump could push for renegotiations with the Panamanian government, offering deals that the country may find impossible to refuse. His ultimate goal would be to re-establish the level of control the U.S. had for over 5 decades, despite Panama's strong resistance to reopening discussions. With his inauguration as president set for January 20th, the world now eagerly watches to see what Trump's administration has planned for the future of trade at the Panama Canal. Will he succeed in reclaiming control, or is this simply another strategic public move? What do you think? Will Trump take back the Panama Canal, or is this just another political spectacle? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, check out the next video on your screen. You won't want to miss it.